Hello reader friends, I hope you've been enjoying the vlog thus far. I ran some errands today. I had to go out on the town, so of course I also visited my local library, which I highly recommend you all do. So I have a fun library book haul, but I also have a tiny manga haul to share with you as well. First, I'll share the manga haul. I got volumes 7, 8, and 9 of Requiem of the Rose King. I read volumes 5 and 6 last night and I thoroughly enjoyed them. This is really good for October. It has gritty, dark themes, so I feel like it's a suitable read for this month. I will say there's like a ton of trigger warnings on this. I will reiterate that every time because honestly it catches me off guard. I will put them on the screen because I do not want to utter what said trigger warnings are. I am very impressed with Ayakano's range. As we've talked about, this is a mangaka who has done shoujo series like Otomen, which are fluffy, silly, with easygoing characters whose life troubles are very small in comparison to the troubles of the characters in Requiem of the Rose King. The story is well paced, there are moments of suspense, we are left hanging on some large cliffs, and our main character Richard is just someone who I deeply feel for, and it's hard not to get sad or emotional when Richard is going through a hard patch in the story. And oh boy, there are multiple hard patches, whether it's body dysphoria or family drama or war. There are so many things going on to our poor main character, and this is a series that is just so easy to read volume after volume. I have been buying the volumes off of thrift books used to save some money because this series is an older one, and I think I need to just buy more at a time because it doesn't matter how many volumes I purchase, I fly through them very quickly. Like, I'm going to continue reading this series tonight. I'm going to keep reading volume 7. I already read some of it after I received it, and I'm sure that these 3 new volumes I got are not going to last me very long. So thrift books, here I come, I guess. By the way, not sponsored. I wish it was. Thrift books, go ahead and email me. I would love to work together. But anyways, moving on now to my borrowed book haul. I got quite the stack of books here. I kind of went crazy because I went to the library with one book in mind. I really want to read Monstrilio. It is like this dark book about this mother who loses her son but then revives him by putting his lung in the ground, and out comes this child who she believes is her son, and it seems like it's a story that talks about grief, and it also has like some queer representation. So I was really wanting to pick that book up today, but it was checked out, so I put it on hold and we will read that at a later date. So I guess to compensate, I got a bunch of books. So let's go over them. So one of the books that I borrowed is Our Share of Night, which is this horror book that tackles topics such as loss and grief. In the back it says a young father and son set out on a road trip, devastated by the death of the wife and mother they both loved. United in grief, the pair travel to her ancestral home, where they must confront the terrifying legacy she has bequeathed. A family under the order that commits unspeakable acts in search of immortality. That synopsis kind of serves. So I'm excited for this. Also, if you hear a little animal squeaking, that is my cat. She really hates when I record YouTube videos and don't let her in. But if I let her in, she's gonna destroy these shelves. So anyways, moving on to the next book I got The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. This is a book that I've had my eye on for a while, and they just placed it on their new release shelf, so I snagged it immediately. So the synopsis says, on an unnamed island, objects are disappearing. First hats, then ribbons, birds, roses. Most of the inhabitants are oblivious to these changes, while those few able to recall the lost objects live in fear of the draconian memory police, who are committed to ensuring that what has disappeared remains forgotten. When a young writer discovers that her editor is in danger, she concocts a plan to hide him beneath her floorboards. Okay. And together they cling to her writing as the last way of preserving the past. Okay, that sounds pretty interesting. Also, it's giving, what is like that weird conspiracy theory that people would talk about where they're like, oh, I thought it was Jiffy peanut butter, not Jif. What is that called? I can't remember. I'll just put it on the screen. Anyways, the next two I got are by the same author, Aidan Thomas. I have something to confess. So last year I recorded an October vlog where I checked out this book, Cemetery Boys. I did not read it. I did not read it. I planned to read it last year in October for spooky season. I did not do it. It did not happen. I will read it this time, I promise. And the next book I got by Aidan Thomas is The Sunbearer Trials. I don't know much about this. All I know is that a new book for this series recently got released and it just looks stunning, and I really want to know what this story is about. I really hope I get hooked because, I don't know, it just seems like such a cool celestial fantasy story and I want to be involved, you know? Hopefully I can actually read all these books. This is a lot of books. I think the first one that I'll read is Our Share of Night, purely because this book is due in 2 weeks and it has 588 pages and the font looks like this. It's tiny. Do you see that? Because of the sheer volume of this book, I feel like I need to read it first. Otherwise, I'm not going to have the time before it needs to be returned. And returning your books on time is very important. It's very demure, it's very thoughtful, very mindful. So I highly recommend all you guys do that. But anyways, now that I've covered all that ground and I've said what I needed to say, it's time to read. I've had a long day and I haven't read yet, and I really want to read, and I'm going to read this. So I'll see you in the next clip. Hello, reader friends. It's been a while. I haven't had the chance to vlog a ton or read, and that's because things have been a little bit hectic on my side. That's why this vlog doesn't have as much vlog content, unfortunately, but that's okay. I'm gonna share with you guys my reading updates. So last we spoke, I was talking about Requiem of the Rose King, and I binge read all of these volumes that I currently own, volumes 7, 8, and 9, and these were some of the most emotionally intense volumes. Like, I'll be honest, like some of these are hard to read. There are events that happen to our characters that are just awful. I will put the trigger warnings for that on the screen because I think it's important to be aware before you get yourself into a series. And so moving from manga to novels, I have quite a bit of novels in my reading rotation right now. I don't recommend reading a bunch of books at the same time, but it just so happened to turn out this way. So at the library, like I mentioned to you earlier, I picked up Our Share of Night. This is a long book and it's got that Bible text, you know what I'm saying? That Bible font size, so it's not messing around. I got to page 115 and honestly, I still don't know what is going on. I feel like this book just throws us into the plot. You know, we are observing conversations with characters that involve topics and people that we've never heard of, and they talk in ways that seem cryptic, and I'm just like, what are you guys talking about? Like, I feel like I'm eavesdropping on everyone and everything that is happening. I don't feel like I've been properly invited to the story, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's actually a good thing in this case. In the case of a horror novel, I feel like slowly exposing the story and the true nature of the characters is something that really adds to that scary factor. And yeah, this is a book where you want to go in knowing nothing because then you can enjoy that process of like the mirror unfogging and getting a clearer image of what is actually happening. It's a supernatural, very creepy, scary story, and it kind of masquerades itself as this very normal thing in the beginning, and then you're like, what the actual heck is going on? So to briefly describe this story without spoiling it, this is about a father who lost his wife, a son who is grieving the loss of his mother, and they are going through this process together imperfectly. There are a lot of morally gray characters. Don't expect to love these characters, I will say that. That's important to note. And this father and son duo are on their way to visiting the in-laws, and they're trying to uncover what actually happened to her. And that's it. That's all I can say without spoiling the story, honestly. And honestly, I don't even really know how I feel about this book so far. I'm enjoying it, kind of. Like, there are moments where I'm like, okay, this is getting interesting. I like this. There are other moments where I'm like, this is so slow moving and I don't really understand what's happening. But I think it's one of those books that you just have to keep reading in order for the stuff you read in the beginning to make sense. And those books aren't always the most satisfying because it's delayed gratification, and we are in a society that loves instant gratification. So I'm trying my best to be patient with this book because I realize that's probably why I'm not a big fan of it right now. I need to be patient and keep reading and then see how the story unfolds. I'm gonna stick through it because I've seen the reviews, and I mean, I know that reviews you shouldn't always trust, but I've seen reviews for this book and people say that it's like amazing, and I'm like, I want to really experience that, so I hope that's true for me as well. Remember I was saying that I wanted a specific book from the library, but then they didn't have it, and then I put it on hold, and then like literally the next day it was available. I'm happy it's in my hands, and now I'm going to throw it into my reading cycle that I've got going on, and that book is Monstrilio. I read the first line and I really was impacted by it, so I think like I need to start it soon for sure. I'm going to be reading Monstrilio on top of Our Share of Night, on top of another book that I just got. I've had it on hold since July, okay? So the book that I'm talking about is The Prospects. This is a sports romance, which automatically, you know, it's not my thing. I'm not into sports and I usually don't enjoy romance novels, but this is a romance between a trans man and a cis man who are like enemies to lovers. You know, enemies to lovers, that's a bit of an exaggeration. I've started reading this and these guys are not really enemies to lovers. I find that that genre or subgenre of romance is often exaggerated. It's more so that they are just annoyed at each other or they have miscommunication issues. But anyways, I am getting off topic. This story is about two baseball players who don't really like each other. It seems like they have like a history, so there's something that happened in their past that has kept them apart. And these two guys are on opposing teams until one day they are put on the same team. And we can just assume what happens, since this is a sports romance. Reading about romance makes me feel uncomfortable sometimes, which is something I'm realizing about myself, but since this story has trans representation, maybe I'll enjoy it more. So we'll see. We'll talk about it later. That concludes my reading updates, and that's going to end this vlog. Thank you so much for watching up until this point. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a like. And if you want to watch more content like this, go ahead and subscribe. It really helps my channel. And also comment down below what's something you're excited to read this October. I love hearing from you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.